of money or labor or modern parts can make an old car drive like a new one. Rick Katzeff learned this the long and hard way after sinking some 3,000 man-hours into a blank check eXoMod of a 1969 Dodge Charger. Katzeff is no novice, either. He has earned accolades for his work restoring more than 25 Mopar classics by sweating details like the factory paint markings on the fasteners. Yet even with Katzeff's experience and the best parts money could buy, that 69 Charger turned into a $550,000 car that couldn't match the comfort and fun of his $75,000 Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat. Katzeff came away from that job convinced he was approaching the new old car market from the wrong direction. Instead of restoring a classic with modern mechanical components, he reckoned he could build a better car by redesigning today's Dodge Challenger as a 55-year-old B-body. That vision drove him to Frankenstein a Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat Red-Eye into the carbon-bodied 1968 Dodge Charger you see here. Known as the eXoMod C68 Carbon, Katzeff's monster packs 797 horsepower, timeless style, and all the 21st century conveniences new car owners take for granted, from stability control to heated seats. We'd already seen the car up close and walked away impressed. Now we've driven the eXoMod C68 Carbon on the street and at the test track to fully grasp what exactly Katzeff has created. Before we get to the driving part, we have to talk about the C68 Carbon's design, because that's how every conversation about this car starts, and it starts a lot of conversations. It's easy to imagine someone attempting to turn a new Challenger into a classic Charger by bolting a few modifications, say, hideaway headlights, scalloped door skins, and round tail lamps, onto Dodge's retro design theme. But Katzeff isn't the kind of person to take the quick and easy path. Starting with reproduction body panels, he modified the steel stampings to fit a Challenger beneath them and used those to create molds for a complete 1968 body made from carbon fiber. To build a C68 Carbon, eXoMod removes the Challenger's steel panels, grinding the spot welds to pull the roof, and then bolts and bonds the carbon fiber replacements on using 16 tubes of aerospace-grade adhesive. The modified body requires new glass in the rear window and rear quarter panels, and to mimic the 68 model, the fuel filler is relocated from the side to the top of the driver's rear fender. Uneducated I won't be tricked into thinking the C68 is the real thing. Katzeff can't hide the modern Challenger's thick A-pillars, reclined windshield, or the lack of front quarter glass, but his conversion is convincing enough to fool most gawkers. Crucially, the C68 Carbon gets the proportions right, helped by the fact that the 2022 Challenger's wheelbase is only an inch shorter than that of the 68 Charger. The carbon fiber body extends the Challenger's nose by 6 inches and the tail by 4 inches to match the length of the original, while the deft design work masks the fact that the C68 is 3 inches taller and almost 4 inches wider. The quality of the build left us impressed, especially considering that carbon fiber doesn't allow for fine-tuning each installation the way steel would. It's safe to say Chargers didn't leave the factory looking this good back in 1968. Katzeff lets the style sell the car. The only other noteworthy modifications are a set of forge-line wheels and catskin leather installed over the seats and on the door panels. The car is otherwise untouched from when it left the factory. That means it's loaded with modern conveniences and can be serviced at any Dodge dealership. It also means that this $349,000 example has the same dashboard as a $33,000 V6 Challenger. Fire the 6.2-liter V8 and lay into the throttle, and the C68 unleashes an unmistakable combination of shrieking supercharger and booming exhaust that carries across county lines. Driving this throwback is the usual Hellcat hootenanny, with your right foot alternately toe-tapping the throttle to harness as much of the 797 horsepower and 707 pounds-to-foot of torque as the tires will allow. Those Nitto NT 555 G2 tires at the rear measure 315/35 or 10 mm wider than the Red-Eye's stock 305s, but they're still not enough to rein in Dodge's unholy beast. As with stock Hellcats, you launch the C68 in second gear using about 30% throttle and the self-restraint of a nun. Anything more aggressive than that turns your launch into an awesome but slow-moving smoke show. Our best run in the eXoMod C68 Carbon yielded a 4.0-second sprint to 60 miles per hour and a 11.9-second quarter mile. Those times land in line with a Challenger SRT Hellcat Red-Eye we tested back in 2019, although we also saw a second example run to 60 miles per hour in just 3.8 seconds that year. In a December 1967 cover story comparison test headlined Supercars, Motor Trend's test team pedaled a 440 cubic inch, 375 horsepower 1968 Charger RT to 60 miles per hour in 6.5 seconds and through the quarter mile in 14.9 seconds at 94 miles per hour. We never tested the 425 horsepower Hemi. But we can confidently say that no 1968 Charger could move like the C68. It's also hard to imagine a eXoMod improving on what Dodge's massive development budget afforded. The C68 isn't just a better car based on power alone, of course. The C68 isn't just a better car based on power alone, of course. The 8-speed automatic transmission and modern tires and all the engineering finesse that ties the car into a cohesive whole make the C68 Carbon both wilder and more civilized than its inspiration. Hellcats get no respect when their handling is held to the high standards set by the Chevy Camaro ZL1 and Ford Mustang Shelby GT500, but the frame of reference changes when your car looks like it drove off the set of Bullitt. In that 1967 comparison, Motor Trend mused, just how far can you go with a 4,000-pound car with a 117-inch wheelbase and inordinately biased to the front? It's taken a half-century to get to this point, but the answer to that question would have scrambled the brains of 1967's editorial staff. The carbon-bodied Charger weighs 4,430 pounds, which makes it about 60 to 90 pounds lighter than a stock wide-body Hellcat Redeye. That's significantly less than the 450-pound savings that eXoMod claims and hardly enough to make a dynamic difference in a Hellcat's performance, but by 1960s muscle car standards, the C68 might as well be a Lotus. It's easy to place and predictable in the way it corners, even if it's not exactly sharp and immediate. Back in '67, we also lamented that cubic inches and comfort are both heavy, and in this case they cancel out any major improvements in suspension modifications. All these years later, Dodge's big coupe still places a high priority on comfort, ceding the fight over best handling brags to Chevy and Ford. That gives the C68 a genuine spiritual connection to the Charger it imitates. Even as the C68 posts a decent 0.89 grams of cornering grip, the body lolls through turns with a silly fun amount of lean. Due to a supply issue, the C68 Carbon we tested wore Pirelli P0 front tires, size 285/35 or 20, instead of the Nittos customers get. Hellcats leave the factory with same size front and rear tires in a feeble attempt to minimize understeer in these nose-heavy cars, but eXoMod uses narrow front rubber for aesthetics and clearance. Dynamically, though, it's a compromise. The C68's 25.6-second figure-8 lap ranks more than a second behind the fastest Challenger Redeye in our record book. The eXoMod's 60 to 0 mph braking distance also stretched 8 feet longer. You can vanquish understeer with a jab of the throttle, but the long arcs of our racetrack in a bottle course require patience, a virtue in short supply among Hellcat drivers. Of course, few people are going to buy a $349,000 muscle car throwback with the intention of tackling the tail of the dragon at the absolute limit. The C68 Carbon's purpose is to deliver the experience buyers look for in a eXoMod. That means having enough power to outgun anything you might roll up on at a stoplight, but with a proven track record of reliability and comfort to back it up. An eXoMod Charger means never dealing with a finicky carburetor or being stranded by a faulty distributor. It means that the air conditioning blows cold and the heated seats toast your buns. It's comfort over 300-mile drives and the peace of mind knowing that you'll make it home without a tow truck's help. The $329,000 starting price covers the cost of a 717 horsepower Hellcat to serve as the foundation, while upgrading to the 797 horsepower Redeye bumps the price $20,000 higher. We imagine most Hellcat buyers become Lamborghini buyers when they have that kind of money. Katzif has discovered, though, that his customers aren't just the usual Detroit muscle car enthusiasts. The Hellcat dressed as a classic has attracted collectors who also own European sports cars and modern supercars. For buyers who aren't steeped in Detroit history and nostalgia, a C68 Carbon delivers the vibe without the old-school driving dynamics.
We have come to the end of the video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel to help us.